How's it going, everyone? Welcome to the pipeline. Nice cup, Don. I really appreciate it. I was wondering, I wasn't even looking at the monitor. I just heard Triss laugh, and I'm like, "What's so freaking funny?"
That's
Triss?
not a cup. That's an actual decapitated toad's head that Don's drinking his brains out.
It's the mug from Super Nintendo World in Japan. They also have a Goomba one, I believe.
Oh, that's so cool.
Oh, that's cool.
I can't say it's a decapitated Goomba head because
I just ate a Goomba.
It's just a Goomba.
Yeah.
All right. So yeah, what a fun way to start off a rather actually depressing episode of the pipeline. Let's be real.
Yeah.
Only the moment is depressing. We'll get past it, but
yeah, it's rough because we're gonna talk about some layoffs that happened at Bungie. Because it was announced this week that Bungie has just laid off 17% of its workforce. If you don't know Bungie, they're known for Destiny currently. They were known for the Halo series before 343 took over. So it's just really sad to see this once again happen in the industry, especially from a developer as huge as Bungie. Recently got bought out by Sony as well. They laid off 220 of their employees, and the employees themselves were caught off guard by this staff reduction, especially after the recent Destiny 2 expansion, The Final Shape. The project exceeded all internal projections, according to former employees. So it just continues the trend of it's just like you create something that's, if you're a game developer and you create something that performed poorly, you lose your job. But if you create something that exceeded all expectations, you still lose your job. And to make matters worse, way worse, the CEO of the company, Pete Parsons, talked about, for one, he made his profile private, for one. Because this man, shortly after the Sony acquisition, this man bought so many classic cars. And you're telling me he couldn't take a pay cut to save his employees? That's just utter, pure American capitalism summarized. What are our thoughts on this? Don, you're not American, but I want to get your thoughts on this.
I mean, it affects us all, right? Video game layoffs have been going on for quite a while and already exceeds the entirety of 2023, which was about 10,000. It's been May was already at 10,800, and now we're closer to 12,000 and 13,000 than ever as we speak.
Yeah.
So honestly, it's been really the most depressing year for game developers. I can imagine what they're going through right now, like upending their life and then being laid off. It is not just in America; it's all across the globe, and all aspects of the video game industry are affected. I think America is hit the hardest, to be honest.
Yep.
Particularly clusters where a lot of developers are, and I can't imagine trying to find another job in that area, because it will basically be a combination of wanting a job coming in and those being overloaded already with applications, so you don't really have anywhere to go, and that seems like the really scariest part about it.
Yeah, it really is. Andre, what do you think?
I mean, I think what everyone thinks. It's the same conversation every time. Layoffs suck. It sucks that it's been happening so often in the game industry. And I mean, it sucks anywhere. It sucks especially that it seems to be happening so frequently now. But at some point, this conversation feels redundant. It's a core problem with how capitalism works. This is the result from companies that overspent and overgrew during the COVID era, and now we're paying the price for it. Yep. And that sucks. It's a side effect of capitalism. And I think, talking individually about each story is almost completely pointless at this point, because it doesn't address anything. But
this time we know the CEO bought cars. So
every CEO is probably buying car factories.
Yeah.
It's depressing. It's sad. It sucks. And that's just the reality right now of working in a capitalistic society. There is right now no avoiding it, and until society is ready to move on to some other method that may or may not work better, we're stuck with what we have. So we can complain all we want. Unfortunately, it's not going to change anything.
I wonder for some of these companies, because obviously some this year were taken over by either Sony or Microsoft. I wonder if they would have been better off on their own.
I wonder that too. I really do. There's really I feel like there's no way to tell, genuinely.
You just bought them in 2022, right? So
yes.
Not that long ago.
Yeah, it's just really awful, and I know we're gonna get every time capitalism is criticized. You got those bad faith arguments saying like, oh, if you don't like capitalism, you shouldn't have a
Yeah.
job or whatever. And it's just
No,
like,
for sure.
yeah, how dare we criticize
Part of a system.
society? Yeah, exactly. How dare we criticize?
How
the
dare you
system?
not rise up, Joey, and be the sole person to reverse everything about capitalism?
Look, if I could, I would. I just don't want to right now. I have a lot of going on. I know, Tris, I want to ask you your thoughts, but I'm pretty much sure it's just the same as what we all think.
Yeah. It's more reiterating. I mean, and I'm more so, I guess, just noting the surprise of the rise of these companies that are having success doing this too. Like we had the same thing happen a little while back with Xbox cutting a whole bunch of studios, including, the Hi-Fi Rush developers. Now we're seeing the same kind of thing with Bungie, and I'm worried that we really are entering an era of the game industry where it doesn't matter how successful something is.
And
Right.
I also gladly point out that this is not the first time that Sony even has a reduction in staff in the last year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Seriously.
I mean, or even the last few years, I think. Maybe I'm misremembering.
Well, the last one was also they closed, I think, London studio, and they had a reduction across staff across the board across London Sony studios. So, and Bungie was kept out of that time around. So it might just be a result of doing it now, which still doesn't feel completely fair, but maybe that's just the reality of things at Sony.
Right. And and stuff like this, it's so like, what can we, the consumer, do to like help like
Nothing.
aid this? Nothing, pretty much. Like we
No.
could talk about how, all right, well, I'm not buying anything from Sony again. I'm not buying anything from Bungie again after what they did. And it's just like, that's literally not helpful in the slightest.
No.
Look how poor J.K. Rowling is these days.
Yeah, exactly. Just goes to show. It's just
Yeah.
like stuff like this. Boycotts don't work. I don't know. I guess. But like we say every time layoffs happen, the best way you can support developers is to, support independent games, add them to your wish list if you have no money. Just that's the best way to do it, is just to support those small teams, because a lot of them come from big. Because you'd think a lot of them would come from big studios like this too, especially after getting laid off.
Some also have like independent free projects which they can do from their regular work, and some will continue with that. So seek out if they're already starting one.
Yeah.
That's right. Yes, absolutely. If they have GoFundMe set up, like do that. I don't remember who this person was. I don't know if she set up a GoFundMe, but she was a Bungie employee. Her baby is about to be due, and she basically can't get maternity leave. So,
Yeah.
oh, that really just, as a father, that really just makes my blood boil.
Yeah.
I mean, it speaks to, I believe, I don't know the full case in this specific example, but she should be eligible for unemployment at the least. But I think it speaks more to like a failure of society that there aren't better safety nets set up.
Yes.
Because I don't like, from a truly like purely business perspective in terms of the unfortunate nature of like appealing to shareholders, like there's only so much a company can do in order to have their own safety nets, which is expectedly minimal. And it's too bad that there isn't better safeguards in place for individuals who do find themselves in a layoff or whatever situation it may be, because it seems like a lot of people also just don't care. A lot of people just don't care. Well, tough
Right.
luck, figure it out. And I wish we had a better system in place so we wouldn't have to have these conversations.
Indeed. Yeah. And this ties into our next topic, which is just fresh off of this morning, just very sad to hear. It's not from the video game development side, but from the game publication and press side. After 33 years, Game Informer is shutting down. And this is just really just sad to hear for multiple reasons, especially because nobody saw this coming, not even the employees.
No.
They found out by reading this tweet, a lot of them. And it basically reads, "The final level, farewell from Game Informer. After 33 thrilling years of bringing you the latest news, reviews, and insights from the ever-evolving world of gaming, it is with a heavy heart that we announce the closure of Game Informer. From the early days of pixelated adventures to today's immersive virtual realms, we have been honored to share this incredible journey with you, our loyal readers. While our presses may stop, the passion for gaming that we cultivated together will continue to live on." Just a bunch of crap. Was just like
This reads, and I might be speaking out of line here, this reads like written by AI.
Yeah, they said, okay, I kid you not. I think there was an email sent out about this that did sound like it was written by an AI.
Oh my
Yeah,
God.
but who uses immersive virtual realms as a way to describe how you're covering video games?
Yeah, it's just, it's just bad. It's just so bad. It's all terrible.
Yeah.
And like I don't know like much of the behind the scenes stuff of why a shutdown like this would happen, but everyone's pointing to GameStop, blaming this for the parent company GameStop for this, and yeah, I would be inclined to agree.
I mean, is GameStop going to be around for that much longer?
We thought we doesn't seem like it at this point. Like I think we've been touting like GameStop's going to go under for like years now, but I think they got meme money a few years back, pretty much.
Right.
The GME has kept them staying afloat. The stocks, there's a whole movie about it called Dumb Money,
Right.
if you want to look into that. But yeah, just all around, just so terrible. I have quite a few friends that work at Game Informer, so this like. I'm granted I'm not the one who lost my job, but I still feel for them. I feel for them so hard. This is just so terrible, and they're so talented. They're so hardworking. My pal Wesley, we talked about how he traveled so much through this job interviewing game developers, coming out with these great documentaries talking about Dragon Age and other games like that, and to see them just all of a sudden just like this getting swept under, like the tablecloth was pulled out from underneath them, and it's just I'm angry.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just looking at also the other side of it, like the main company, and I'm also seeing it in other aspects because they have international stores, and particularly they have a lot of outside of America. They have a lot in Germany. And the last time I was in a German GameStop, it also seemed like they were far more focusing on Funko Pops and way
It's like that here.
less on games.
Yeah.
It's like that here too.
It's like that here.
It's just all kinds of tragic. Like Game Informer, I'm sure we've all been subscribed to Game Informer at some point in our lives.
If you bought anything at GameStop, you had to have been. It was almost impossible to avoid
Right.
it. And
I actually bought stuff in the American GameStop at Universal City Walk when it was still a thing back in the day when I was going to E3.
wow.
And they just gave me an issue of Game Informer.
That's so
yeah,
cool.
no, you basically just automatically got signed up for that back in the day. And to the magazine's credit, making it 33 years is actually incredible. Like for a magazine, a physical product that you can buy in stores for a gaming magazine, I think they're the last one in the US at least, or were.
Yeah.
And I can't even recall the last time I saw any other gaming magazine. So that is an accomplishment in and of itself.
I mean, it sucks too because they were even like a bunch of employees were even posting today, like because of how sudden this is, like the next issue will never get to come out, and it was like 70-75% of the way done. Like it's not like it was we're just getting started, we're losing it. Like there's stuff in what would have been the next issue that we're just never going to see now, and they're upset by that too, and it's devastating.
Are there any other big gaming magazines left in the US?
I don't think so. I think they were the last one.
Yeah,
there
I know
are a
there's
number of them in
there's
Europe.
Nintendo Force, but they're like I actually haven't looked at Nintendo Force in a while, but I remember subscribing to Nintendo Force magazine, which is pretty much a throwback to Nintendo Power. But they're run by Patreon subscribers, I believe.
Yeah,
right.
So it's not they're not like a big like huge. I wouldn't say like corporation published magazine, which hey, that's fine, right?
No, it's more like a passion project, like reliving the Nintendo Power days kind of thing.
We have one that's still going after 25 years, but they've switched publishers like 5 or 6 times at this point.
Interesting.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I just remember, like, I didn't really subscribe to Game Informer as much, but I just remember reading Nintendo Power magazines in the morning before school, eating my Eggo waffles. Before the
best era.
Yeah, it really was. Yeah, it really just is awful to see this for just multiple reasons. Just because it's just like, this is the end of, like, the longest, pretty much the... I don't want to claim it's like the longest lasting game magazine, but it's definitely one of them for sure.
Definitely for sure.
Yeah, but just the fact that it had to go out like this, completely sudden, and people just employees found out this way. Once again, just goes to show like this industry is in frickin' shambles.
I think I'm happy to hear otherwise, but I think that's almost always how it goes. Like you always hear they never saw it coming. Like it's very rare that employees get a notable heads up on being laid off, for better or worse, unfortunately.
I think I saw the turn coming when all the official magazines, for example in the UK, were also dropped, which was a big part of Future's business. And then Nintendo Power came down, and then now this. I don't think there's much big ones left. I think the only big one I can see off the top of my head is Edge.
Oh yeah, Edge is a thing, isn't it?
Yeah,
I forgot
Yeah.
about that.
Edge
but yeah,
Magazine, and then-
it's a bummer though because I do like visual media
yeah.
to some degree.
That's great. It really is great. But
It's wild too because like this isn't even the first time this week that GameStop has come under fire. Like
That describes most weeks, I feel like.
no, of course, but it's kind of wild that the same week as them because the Xbox Live store recently shut down, and then GameStop's official social media accounts posted like, "Bet you wish you bought all those physical games now, huh?" And everyone just kind of dunking on GameStop. What physical games? You only sell Funko Pops now. So everyone's already been dunking on GameStop this week. To then now get this, which is a more serious problem. It's two things in 1 week that I'm sure, as a company, their shareholders aren't going to be very happy with.
yeah, I mean, here's the thing. I actually liked that tweet. I thought it was a good dunk, even if it's just like, I don't know, it's funny to me. But yeah, it's really rough. We'll talk about Sonic.
It's one of those. I'm not going to say it. Like B eats crackers moments, right? Whenever something or a company or person that you dislike says something, it's just easy to dunk on them, regardless of the merit of what
Right.
they're saying. Right?
Absolutely, yeah.
That's
100%.
true. That's very true. All right, let's move on to the next news. We're talking about Nintendo financials. Let's get right into it.
Oh, thank
I feel
God.
like I do think I didn't do a very good segue right here. I just want to say to all the Game Informer employees that were pretty much all the Game Informer employees, because they were all affected after the shutdown. I wish you the best. I really do. You really deserved better. Some of the most creative, some of the most creative and hardworking people in the industry, big time. Like I look at Brian. I don't know how to pronounce his name. Brian Shea. I'm sorry, Brian.
Shea, yeah.
Brian Shea. Yeah. I look at the career he's had at Game Informer, and I'm just jealous of this man. All these interviews he's got to do, just like, yeah. I hope he finds really good work in the coming months here. But all right. Once again, let's get to the Nintendo financials. The financial report came out last night as of recording this podcast, this live stream, what have you. And it's not looking good, everybody. I think Nintendo needs to go third party after them financials.
Nintendo's doomed.
Nintendo is doomed. I've been saying this since the Wii U era. They're doomed. All right, but for real, let's get into it. Nintendo has sold 2.1 million units of its flagship Switch consoles from the last financial report to now. So the current number of Switches out in the wild is 143.42 million. Not a big jump at all. Very small jump. Which is hardly that, and I know it shouldn't be that surprising, but I kind of was a little bit. I expect that number to be maybe a little bit higher. I don't know. Any other thoughts on that?
When was the last one before this? Like, what? How long of a period are we looking at here?
Was
Was it March or was it May?
I think it was.
I don't remember.
So I think the report. I don't even remember.
Because I was saying, because if it's from March to now, yeah, that does feel like a rather big slowdown. But if it's from May to now, that's not as bad, I would say.
I mean,
For a slower period.
I mean, they look at the last period, right? Because otherwise it would be too short for the general meeting of shareholders.
Right.
So I think this would be of the last period, because usually for the second quarter they don't do a Q&A.
People are saying, Nintendo Gamer Free is saying beginning of April, and like a fan saying April, May. So yeah, I think it is that around that time. I should have looked at my last financial report that I did. That that last financial earnings call was when they revealed the reveal of the Switch 2. Whenever that's going to happen.
That was like early May. Yeah, that was like the first week of May. Yeah.
It does feel like forever ago.
Yeah.
I was just like, you're kidding me.
Since then, I mean, I'm not too surprised then, because what we've had released is Paper Mario 1000 Year Door, Luigi's Mansion 2 HD, and NES Championships. Like that's kind of it.
I mean, NES Championships will fall out of this quarter because it would be the next quarter.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. The top 10 list, to my knowledge, has not really changed much. It's still the same we come to expect. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is at the top. Once again, Animal Crossing New Horizons is number 2. Tears of the Kingdom's up there, but I think it's been up there. And for some reason, New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe, Andre's favorite 2D Mario game, is still number 10 on there.
God, I remember covering that game during that December because the American copy didn't came in. I was like, man, playing through this again, I just feel dire.
Also, shout out to Stealth on Twitter for just keeping us updated on all these financials. Like, really cool guy. We have him on the show a few times. We should get him on the pipeline. Let's do it, guys. All right, and to go over the 2 million seller titles that have come out from Nintendo. Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door remake sold 1.76 million units, and Luigi's Mansion 2 HD sold 1.19 million. And what the financial report, I saw in the financial report, the explanatory material, that there are 3 million seller titles, those being the first two, and the other one was from a third-party software publisher, and I want to know what it is. What was it? I can't figure it out, but yeah, it's wild to me that I was trying to think of other games that came out from the third-party side of things, but I couldn't.
I'm surprised how well Luigi's Mansion 2 is doing. Or I mean, comparatively, like it sold almost as much as Thousand Year Door in what, a couple of weeks?
Yeah, maybe less than that. I want to say,
like,
are these
no time?
I want to say, are these numbers from as of June 30th? I could be totally wrong there.
That would just be a few days for Luigi's Mansion. If it is, then yeah.
Yeah, it's June 30th. Yes.
Wow.
Jesus Christ.
Honestly, that's a good
lot.
launch. They marketed it pretty well, and people want like people like Luigi's Mansion 3 sold really well. People want more Luigi's Mansion, so it makes sense.
Yeah,
they deserve a game better than Luigi's Mansion 2.
Agreed. They're going to be so many of those people are disappointed. Maybe they traded their stuff into GameStop, so there you go. Go to GameStop.
Luigi's Mansion 4 bombs now because of Luigi's Mansion 2.
Oh God,
man.
A fate worse than death. That's so sad. But
no, I don't know how TTYD compares in the same amount of time for compares to the Origami King, but it sounds like it's overall doing well. I mean, the fact that it went over 1 million, it's almost 2 million. That's pretty good given where we're at with the Switch lifespan right now, and how otherwise it's kind of a quieter period for Nintendo right now, like this whole first half of this year has been. So
yeah, to put more numbers into perspective, for the net sales for Nintendo consoles, or is it game? I don't remember. The net sales lost 46.5% year on year, while net profit for the company fell 55.3%. But Nintendo is basically saying in their financial report, like, none of this is surprising to us.
Yeah,
the Switch has been out for 8 years, and we haven't had a flagship launch for the Switch like we did Tears of the Kingdom last year, and also the Mario movie was last year, also did them some really good business.
Right.
So they still consider this a steady period for them.
Right. I double checked the extra information of the financials, and I couldn't find the title of that third game.
Right. What is it? Is this even real? Nintendo, are you lying to us?
Yeah, I couldn't find it.
It just
mostly
if there was a Just Dance, it's probably Just Dance.
I don't think there was a new Just Dance recently.
No,
They
no,
usually
no
come
Just Dance. And otherwise, I just mostly talked about the games that are releasing this year and how Donkey Kong Country and the museum is still scheduled for fall of this year.
That's cool.
So nothing really that important.
And the best part about these financials is that Metroid Prime 4 does not have a TBA release date on
Nope.
it. Finally, God.
In fact, this is the first full-on financial briefing that doesn't have a TBA game anymore.
Oh wow,
That's really crazy, right?
Yeah,
that is nuts. I like it. We still have release years, they're not exact release dates for 2025, but it's way better than TBD. Like it's Prime 4 and it's Pokemon Legends ZA. Those are still
those are 25. Yeah.
Yes. So.
Yeah.
Overall, it was a pretty. What were you gonna say, Andre?
It tickles me that you mentioned Tears of the Kingdom, which obviously did well at launch and would be why this latest quarter underperformed by comparison. But it did tickle me that, according to the report, Breath of the Wild is currently outselling Tears of the Kingdom in terms of sales in that same period. I'm like, wow, that's impressive for a few reasons.
Yeah.
What is also interesting is that I looked at hardware sales. More than 60% were OLEDs. That's interesting. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not one of them. I wish I bought an OLED, but I really thought we weren't. I didn't think we were gonna get a. I thought we were gonna get a Switch 2 at this point, but we didn't.
The regular Switch and the Switch Lite are actually very comparable in this year so far.
Yeah, that's a lot of different financial informations here. It's just. This is probably the least interesting financial report I've ever read in my entire life. I stayed up late last night doing it, but again, it makes sense, right?
Yeah, it's the quarter two, so usually they don't tell much in quarter two. They don't even have a QA in quarter two.
They don't even have a Q&A. Oh no! Now Furukawa can't dodge questions about the Switch 2.
It's true. It's
Soon.
very true. Yeah.
My goodness. Any final thoughts on these financial reports before I move on to a frankly more interesting topic?
I think in general
It's a
it'll be a
quarter
while. Yeah.
It's never been that. Quarter 2 has never been that interesting, to be honest.
Yeah,
It
that's
hasn't.
that's basically what I was gonna say. It'll be a while before we have interesting financials again, if not only just because we're at the end of the Switch. I don't think the financials are going to be particularly interesting till after the next thing launches.
Right. Do these financials make us think that the Switch 2 will be revealed this year? We know it's going to be revealed this fiscal year, but that ends in March 2025.
I mean, it's a toss-up.
It is.
It kind of depends what their strategy is for 2025, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't think it reveals too much one way or the other, especially knowing Nintendo and their history of having underperforming systems in its final year. I could see them dragging this out until next year.
I mean, they still have a game every single month until the end of this year, which is also sort of unprecedented for
That's
this
true.
late in the life cycle.
Which means perhaps that the slower period will actually come next year. When the Switch 2 is actually announced, we have nothing to play.
Yeah.
I think that would be bad in their financials in general. I do think they need to say something.
Right.
I think they'll say at this point, I'm leaning toward reveal early next year. I don't think we're going to see it this year, but maybe
I agree.
I mean, if the sales are so low, it ultimately doesn't matter when they reveal it, to be honst.
Yeah,
That's
we'll
true.
have to see. But I'm also betting like early next year, before March, or maybe even at March. Like they're going
March
to wait until
3rd.
the last minute. Yeah.
Yeah.
March 2nd, release for March 3rd.
Yes. Let's go. Let's do it. All right. Now, here's the thing. This whole dang pipeline episode is going to be filled with depressing news. So let's just get used to that.
Real
from here
quick,
on
Joey,
out.
this next story, assuming you're going to, it might be why Nintendo's poor financials. They are missing this important key element.
They are. All right. Are we finally talking about Mario and Sonic? Is that what you're thinking?
think we
Yes.
have to.
Good. Very good. What the heck is going on with this franchise? It's apparently dead in the water. So this started from a tweet made on Monday, I believe, from game producer Lee Cocker, who basically said, like, to all those asking me, who keep bugging me about it, there's no Mario. Obviously, there's no Mario and Sonic at the Paris Olympics. There's also not going to be any more Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Games ever again. So,
I mean, is this such surprise that they also didn't have one for the last winter one?
oh, they didn't. That's right. But
Yeah.
nobody cares about the Winter Olympics. Come on.
I think objectively, I think the winter games are better, but that's just me.
Okay, Dutchman.
They were more entertaining.
Wow.
No, but yeah, it's kind of not surprising because the last time we had a Winter Olympics specifically was 2014. Then it became just the Summer Olympics, so it kind of felt like they were already starting to slow down on this series a bit, and especially with everything surrounding Tokyo 2020 Olympics, not even just on Mario and Sonic, but just the world.
Right.
It kind of made sense that, hey, maybe that's kind of the last one, bringing it back home for them, and then they close out. That's it. But so to me, the fact that we were coming up on the month of the Paris Olympics and we still had no announcement for this game, it was clear to me that it was never going to happen because the Mario and Sonic games always release like 6 months to a year out from the actual Olympics.
Yeah.
Like really early comparatively. The fact that there was nothing, I wasn't surprised that there wasn't one for Paris. What surprised me is that they said, yeah, the series is done and the Olympics committee wants to go pursue NFTs and esports.
I do want to say in regards to Tokyo, obviously Sega went all out. Like they made an official version of the game, which, funny enough, I covered on this channel with a Game Watch and everything, which was a year earlier out in Japan for some reason. Don't ask me why. But
Why, Don?
But it was a good game. I feel that Sega went all out with making an official game, making Mario and Sonic on mobile, and also arcade versions of Mario and Sonic. They went so hard, and then the pandemic came.
Yep.
I think that's when they realized maybe we don't need to do this anymore. And then the IOC was like, we don't need to do this either. Okay.
Yeah, Kiss My Flapjack, good old Eric in the chat said, I think the Olympic Committee pursuing NFTs was decided back in 2020. Yeah, I think that's definitely what happened. And man, the fact that they were ever hot in the first place just gives me no faith in humanity whatsoever.
I was listening to Kit and Krista talk about it because they talked about what it's like to work with the IOC, the International Olympics Committee, with these kinds of games, and it's so slow. Is what they were saying. Like they're really slow to make decisions, and a lot of the decisions they make are like playing catch up from like what was popular during the previous Olympics time, like 4 years earlier or something like that. And okay, now we're gonna do them ourselves. So yeah, it's kind of it's both surprising and not surprising that this is what they ended up doing, because they're evidently always late to trends. And what is surprising is that you would think with Sonic movies and Mario movie since the last Olympics, maybe you would want to invest in these really successful IPs right now as a way to get more money. Not
that would mean that that the IOC is very familiar with video games.
That's true.
Because they just accepted the charter, because I'm very much into Olympics and Paralympic stuff. They just accepted the charter for an esports league, and apparently for the dancing segment, it will be Just Dance.
Wow.
Just dance the pain away, Mario and Sonic fans. That's all you got to do, really.
But I enjoyed the Mario and Sonic games, like Rio, not so much. I really enjoyed the game in Tokyo, actually. And then the previous ones on Wii, I really enjoyed on London and on the Vancouver one.
Yeah.
But it's also, they got a bit by bit smaller in scope, and they were less interested in like pursuing these. It kind of also seemed from the Sega end, considering they were also restructuring as well with how they do their entertainment business, that they were just less interested in this.
Yeah. I remember when the first game was even announced. I think it was first announced with a still image for one of Mario and Sonic together. And back in 2008, 2007, whatever year this was. 2007. This was a big deal. And I think this was before Sonic was even announced for Super Smash Bros. Brawl. This was like, you're telling me these two icons are going to get together and do some laps? Like, let's go! Like,
I think it was the same year, actually, where Sonic was announced for Smash.
It was, but this was like, I think the Mario and Sonic Olympic Games were announced like a few months before Sonic and Brawl was.
I did take away some of the hype of Brawl. They should have waited. I think
yeah, maybe a little bit. Yeah.
No, you're absolutely right, though. Like, just the fact of Mario and Sonic crossing over at all was like a really big deal. And for like the first few games in this series, it really was. But after like the third one, given how we were getting these like every 2 to 3 years, it really just kind of
I started
to get pretty stale.
Yeah, I think for me the low point was Sachi. I thought Sachi was incredibly boring, and there was no 3DS version. Which came after a whole charade of interviews asking the brand manager, "Hey, will there be a 3DS version of the game?" And then, with Rio, they returned to 3DS, which honestly was better than the Wii U game as well. So,
sadly, still wasn't very good.
Yeah, I mean, Tokyo was a return to form, but it felt a bit too late.
Right.
Definitely too late there.
Yeah.
Which is why it's kind of like, I feel like this might. I had a whole video about this. I feel like it actually might be a good thing. That Mario and Sonic are no longer bound to specifically the Olympics.
Oh, seriously? Like, why? like, let's really think about this. Why were they at the Olympics in the first place? Like, let's be real.
Mario and Sonic face off in a race is the stupidest thing of all time. Let's be real.
We know who's going to win that one, realistically.
And honestly, maybe this gives them opportunities. The reason why I remember Vancouver so fondly, the 2010 game on DS was actually a mini RPG with like the games more scattered across.
Oh, that's
so that was
cool.
that was a really good concept for a game.
That's so cool. Yeah, I think here's the thing. I was excited at the prospect of Mario and Sonic being in a game together, Mario and Sonic characters. But when I found out there was like not even a story mode, and it was just like, oh, we're just doing fun stuff at the Olympics, y'all. I never bought a single game in the series. I was just like, this does not, not one. And I was just like, this is dumb. I don't like this. Give me a real crossover, Nintendo, Sega. Come on now.
Yeah,
I think it's called Smash.
I feel like this isn't really a loss. It was a stagnant series by and large. It had its mild ups and downs, but what you saw is what you got. And what we got wasn't anything that ever interested me personally. And I feel like there are greater highs to be had potentially from if these two collaborate again.
Yeah.
Because I think I think there's much greater potential, and I'd love to see that rather than just another ho-hum Mario and Sonic at the Olympics Games game. Because also, if you removed Mario and Sonic from the equation, no one would care about these games. No one would give a single darn about them. And so, yeah, I would love to see them try something a little bit more innovative with the two characters. If we ever get that. We may get nothing ever again.
Yeah, Triss has a feature about it, and Eric just posted it in the chat. So,
thank you, Eric.
Yeah, why don't you summarize it a bit, Triss?
Basically,
without spoiling the whole thing, so people.
Yeah. Basically, it's exploring the idea now that they're not bound to the Olympics. What could we see for another Mario and Sonic crossover? Could it be just another party game? Could it be something bigger like Mario Rabbids? Since there's precedent for that now.
Yeah, seriously.
I'm gonna be real. I think the Knuckles Chaotix, it's dumb like ring mechanic could be fun with Mario and Sonic instead. Where you have the two like chained to each other, but they have to trade off on using each other's abilities. Sonic running fast, Mario jumping high, or whatever it is.
That does sound pretty cool, actually.
Right? I think there's potential there.
Yeah, or do like a Crash Twin Sanity thing with Mario and Sonic.
I don't want to shoot a bit on people's parades, but Sonic has seen more usage in also Mario-related games as late. He was in the original Mario Maker with the amiibo costumes.
That was that broke my brain, Dawn, when I put that amiibo on, and then all the Sonic jingle played in a Mario game. What the heck? Nintendo approved this?
That's the true reason why Mario Maker 2 is inferior to Mario Maker 1.
Yes.
It is. Absolutely. Yeah.
Big time. This isn't even a joke. Like, you're right. Like, seriously. Yeah. Oh, my God, Eric, does anyone remember the Yoshi DLC in Sonic Lost World?
Yes.
Bruh.
Yes. And the Zelda DLC.
The Zelda DLC. Yeah.
Yes.
You could also play with a Yoshi, a Sonic colored Yoshi and Yoshi Woolly World with that.
That's right. My God. Nintendo during the Wii U era was something else. Big time. When we say
always positives and negatives.
Yeah, here's the thing. When people say they miss the Wii U era, they don't say they miss everything about it. They just miss stuff like that. Sonic being in Mario Maker 1,
they missed the
DLC in Sonic Lost World.
Yes. This is why we got interesting things from Nintendo. This is why Nintendo having a bad quarter isn't the worst thing. If it forces them to be a little stranger, a little weirder, try some different things, hey, I'm all for it. So Nintendo keep failing so you can try different ideas.
Yes, exactly. Yes, so speaking of Nintendo failing, let's move on to our next story, which is all about Donkey Kong and somebody using an exploit to get the win in Nintendo World Championships NES Edition. This was sent to us by a YouTuber by the name of, I forget their name right here. It is the Sealverse. Yes, thank you for sending this to us, Sealverse. This replay can be found if you just go into the feature of the game, which I don't even own the game, but they do have there's a mode where you can see the winner, right? What they do.
You can see your personal replay.
Yes.
You can also watch the winner's replay, the top person who won. So sorry, continue, Joey.
Yeah, so look at this BS right here. So this person comes in, they rewound it all the way through. How do I get the number one time? Oh, I'll just use invisible ladders.
Yeah, just climbing the air.
Man, really Mario is like the Jesus of air, I guess. Instead of walking on water, he climbs on air. It's wild to me, but it's just like... So this becomes even more interesting, becomes a little more just scummy, I guess, when you realize exploits like this are not normally allowed in Nintendo World Championships NES Edition because I forget who tweeted it. There was a good explanation of it. Basically, when you try to use a well-established glitch in a game, what's the Mario, the Super Mario Bros. The minus world. If you try accessing the minus world, the game rewinds you automatically, saying you can't do that.
It even does so if you are not going the intended path. For example, and I explained this in the previous episode, if you go do the Legends Challenge in Super Mario Brothers, you have to use the vines. If you go just through the pipe, it will straight send you back to that point.
Right.
So yeah, why is this allowed? If this was even an oversight, it might have been an oversight, but still, it's just
it likely has been, to be honest.
Yeah,
That's
I
what
think.
I'm
I mean, so yeah, I'm a little annoyed by this for a couple of reasons. One, though, I have no ill will or anything toward the person who actually got the record. Like, hey, hats off to them. They
Yeah.
figured out something, a glitch that Nintendo apparently didn't know. I have no qualms with them. My
Yeah.
qualm is with Nintendo. You know, like they made it clear that glitches aren't the intended way of playing these games. They missed
Mhm.
this one, which, you know, I guess is understandable because you can't bug test everything. But, you know, there is a period of time in which they have, you know, there's an hour delay between the competition ending and the results being posted. And do they just like not validate these at all? They have not given us any messaging at all to suggest that this record, you know, violated the spirit of the game, which again, no ill will toward the person who earned it. But it makes me wonder, like, what's Nintendo's stance on this? Like, if we miss a glitch, is that fair game then? Are
Uh,
they going to repeat the challenge
you-
at some point to make up for it? And, you know, and also with how the game works, it's weird and it almost doesn't matter because after next week's challenge ends, this one's got washed away forever. There's no
Yeah.
record of it. It's gone.
I mean, I'll be honest with you. I don't think Nintendo cares in the slightest.
I think you're right.
They're like, how many copies did this game sell? 5? Okay, we're good.
Yeah.
And that's what annoys me, Don. Just the fact that this game feels like a kind of cheap, quick cash in. It's like we need something to plop out. Here's NES remix without any of the coolness that made that game what it was.
That's my point. These are from the same developer. Why not remaster NES freaking remix?
Yeah, well, it made sense.
I don't get it either, especially because it's just like, who cares about Nintendo World Championships anymore except old heads? Like, really? Like, let's be honest. Like, they did
Yes, the Nintendo World Championships.
only in America.
Yeah.
And
I
all
will
12 people who watched The Wizard.
as a somewhat oldie, I will say, like, I do love the idea of this. Like, the idea of this, you know, competitive, trying to recreate that competitive experience in a game that's not locked to physical events. I think that's cool.
Yeah.
I think the execution is pretty bad across the board, and especially when I see stuff like this, right, where like they just post the winner, which again, fine, they earned that win, but it's like I wish Nintendo would just say something like, yeah, you know, that's fine, you know, it's fine to use glitches or whatever. We missed it, our bad, you know. But it just seems like Nintendo, as you said, Don, just doesn't really give a care. You know, like they got their money from the game.
Yeah, I had an epiphany this week where why was the multiplayer not like Tetris 99 like? Where you can, where it's basically real time instead of Ghost.
Yes,
Wow.
the Ghost thing is so lame. I fully agree, Don. Like I said, I think they could have done it way better. Real quick, I want to circle back just to why I think this annoys me. It annoys me as a player because you can play, you can spend hours getting your best run, like to the point that there is no conceivable way that you can see that you can substantially better your time. And then along comes someone who discovers a glitch. Again, fine. But, you know, it sucks that that goes against what the spirit of the game seemed to be, which is that the glitches aren't allowed. So it really invalidates every other run that did play it legitimately. And they effectively wasted potentially hours. I've seen people on Twitter on Twitch spend tons of time on an individual challenge for that best time. And they didn't stand a chance against this, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that's what also annoys me too. Like, I feel like Nintendo should have had a way of, like, you know, showcasing one, like, hey, here's a glitch run. Hats off to them. They figured out this and they win that. But also here is a non-glitched run. Also, here's the best non-glitch run that, you know, submitted for this, you know.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing Nintendo probably has like no staff on this game still. Like,
Oh no, they just expected this game just to free run and just wipe out the challenges and make new ones.
right.
Yeah.
And yeah, when you see stuff like this, it kind of like, you know, I feel like if I didn't already own the game, which I bought for the stream, like, would I want to buy it knowing now that stuff like this can happen, you know, and that there's no recourse for wasting time on it otherwise, you know?
Yeah. I agree that I saw a subset of like speedrunners who are really also funny enough, also in stuff like Mario Maker, very fun. Like actively playing this on Twitch, and they just grind like the records all the time. They even make like the speedrun leaderboards now for almost every individual challenge, like on speedrun.com. So I can imagine them not feeling a bit cheated about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just love the Billy Mitchell jokes that everyone made in the comments.
Yeah, that's pretty great. Yeah, I love that. Yeah, it takes place in Donkey Kong, which is what Billy
Yes.
Mitchell got famous for. So
Yeah.
That's hilarious. All right, any final thoughts on Nintendo World Championships before we move on to some Sonic news? And it's not the movie 3 trailer again. So sad. So sad. All right, I'll take that as a no. So let's talk about Sonic Generations, because you can't buy it anymore. Little asterisk there, not really. But this news comes to us from Sonic Stadium this week, and I did check yesterday. The game is still not available. You cannot buy Sonic Generations digitally on the Xbox store, and this was discovered shortly after the Xbox Live 360 store shut down.
Okay.
So people thought, oh, okay, that makes sense. But no, it doesn't, because the only things that were taken off of the 360 store were games that were not backwards compatible with the Xbox One, the Series X and S, stuff like that. Sonic Generations is a fully backwards compatible game. Not only that, same with Sonic Unleashed, which is still available. Sonic Unleashed is still available. You get features like FPS boost, so you can play this game at 60 frames per second, which is really nice. I really like that. But yeah, so you can't buy Sonic Generations anymore. This definitely does not feel like a coincidence in the slightest that it's just Generations, and it's Sonic Unleashed is still up. Oh, but what's coming out in a few months here? Sonic X Shadow Generations Ultimate. Or is it even called Ultimate? I don't remember. Sonic X Shadow.
Sonic X Shadow Generations.
I get Sonic Colors Ultimate. Like,
I get it. Yeah.
Their naming conventions are weird, man. They are.
Oh yeah, they are.
But what's weird though is the fact that you could still buy this game on Steam. So like
For now.
Right? So you better get it now. I just don't know why they wouldn't delist it everywhere while they can. And I'm sure, I haven't plugged in my PS3 to check. You could probably still get it on PS3. But I know Sega's probably not concerned, because who still has their PS3 plugged in? But but in the Xbox's case, many people still have an Xbox Series X, and they could play this game digitally if they wanted to. If you still own the game, you still have it. Everything's fine there. But this isn't the first time a company has done this. Nintendo, the good old perfect, never can do wrong, and Nintendo did the same thing with Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze on Wii U, on the Wii U eShop, before it came out on Switch. So how do we feel about this? Is this okay? Is this wrong? Tell me, Don. You're the one who holds all the answers.
No, it does feel wrong. Luckily for me, I have one of those. So remember when they announced backwards compatibility, and then Sega started reprinting a bunch of their old games with an Xbox One and Xbox logo on the spine? Like, I have all the Sonic games of those, and I also have the Sonic Generations versions of that. So technically, I can still properly play them. But no, it just feels weird to just remove that, because there's really no need to until maybe Sonic and Shadow Generations releases.
Yeah. That is a few months away. What bothers me about this is, like, I understand from a business standpoint of you don't want to have any sort of mixed messaging. You want to make sure people buy the new game. But I don't like the idea of delisting the old, because it makes it feel like people should only buy the new one simply because they can't get the old one.
Yeah.
Like, have more incentive to buy the new game so that you don't have to delist the old one. And make your messaging about the game clear enough that people don't go, oh, what do you mean the Wii U's not an expansion to the Wii? Like, to every game. Like, if you make it very clear in your title and your marketing that this is not that original game, it is a new version, it is a remaster, it is something completely different, there's all this new stuff, there shouldn't be any of that confusion.
There shouldn't be. And it should... Original versions of games should always be available.
Exactly.
Like, even if the remaster is so quote-unquote better. You know?
Oh, for sure.
Like, they don't lose anything in that case. Like, they don't lose anything, and people go, like, what if someone plays a new version, they go, wow, I want to see what the original was like, and they go buy the original. Guess what, game companies? That's more money for you.
Well, to play devil's advocate, the potential that they're losing is that people are able to buy this version of the game for cheaper and have a similar experience, or similar enough experience, without buying the newer, more expensive one.
That's why I do think, like, from a business standpoint, it unfortunately makes sense to do, because that's the main reason, I imagine. It's to make sure it doesn't take away from sales of the new one.
This is why Nintendo has figured out their cheat code, their loophole, if you will, of just not putting games on these services, period, now. Which is why we don't have Mario vs. Donkey Kong for the GBA on their GBA NSO service. And why we don't have GameCube on there currently, because why put GameCube on there for free when you can remake those games or remaster them and sell them at full price?
Yeah.
And
I will
that's
say-
avoiding
I will
that
say,
controversy without having to delist them.
I will say on the flip side of like not people buying the new version, there is a subset of people, and they are more responsible with money than anybody ever else will be. Sega and Atlus tend to discount their games very quickly.
That they do. I just love this comment from Nintendo Gamer for Real that Nintendo will probably delist returns before HD comes out, and it's a little higher up, Andre. But and I'm just thinking, I got news for you, Nintendo Gamer for Real. There's literally no way to buy Donkey Kong Country Returns on any digital storefront because the Wii U and 3DS eShops shut down.
Except if you buy a physical 3DS or Wii copy. But
but they can't delist those.
Yeah, but good luck finding those.
The ninjas come to your house and steal everything.
But good luck finding those because they're kind of hard to find, particularly the 3DS one, which has better new levels.
Yeah, so it's just I hope Donkey Kong Country Returns HD gets fixed before it comes out because I love Donkey Kong Country Returns, but I don't want to play a version with inferior cannon fire smoke. Like it just doesn't vibe with me, man.
That effect it does actually annoy me a lot, Joey. Like, how did they screw up that one effect so bad?
My goodness. Any thoughts on Sonic before we move on to our topical freeze? Speaking of Donkey Kong.
Just that I'm very curious to see if it'll only be the Xbox version that goes to this, or if in the coming months we'll see it happen on the other storefronts as well.
Yeah, we'll see.
Hopefully, there's a person waiting out there to check on PlayStation 3.
Like, I love the idea that all the Sonic fans are somehow on Xbox, so it only makes sense to delist it there.
We all bought an Xbox.
I mean, all Sonic fans bought an Xbox for Sonic 06.
I mean, there are most games backwards compatible that you can play on a modern system.
That's true.
Oh yeah, I wish I could play Sonic 06 backwards compatible, even if that game is hot garbage. It's just like, yeah. All right, let's move on to our topical freeze for the week because we had a birthday this week, and it was the Game Boy. 35 years old, I believe. My God, that thing is older than most of us here. Not really, but it's older than at least half of us here.
I'm almost equally as old.
You're almost equally as old. Okay,
yeah.
So that's crazy. Just like I never, the most I've had with a Game Boy. Oh, look at that Tetris. Love it.
That's right.
Love us some Tetris, and that was the launch game, wasn't it?
One of the launch games. Yep.
That's so cool. That I miss launch games. What are you doing, Don? What are you doing over there? I've never owned a day one Game Boy or like the original model Game Boy. I've had a Game Boy Color. Look at all those games. Just dealing them like Gambit over here. Yeah, so cool. But I had actually it was my sister's Game Boy Color. It was purple transparent, but she never played video games. My family always got her video games, but she never played them. It's like they didn't get the memo that I was the video game player. But I played many different games on it. Monsters, Inc. Remember the Monsters, Inc. game? But more importantly, it introduced me to Zelda with Oracle of Ages and Seasons. But But let's talk about it from your guys' perspective. Did you guys get one? Like you were both still pretty young when the thing came out. But I want to know, did you guys own standard Game Boys before the Color came out?
Yeah.
I started with the launch model of the Color.
Nice.
So I was about 4 or 5. And then my parents were kind of smart because there were a bunch of games already back then on discount. So they just bought them in bulk and I already had a good stack of games to play.
Nice.
That's so cool.
Yeah, I had the original Game Boy, the original like big brick, terrible screen. I don't think I had it right at launch, but I probably had it within a couple of years. And I mean, it was amazing for its time. You know, despite its weak points like that screen again, because being able to play NES caliber games anywhere in the world, like that's soon after the NES. In hindsight, it was before the Super NES had launched.
Yep.
And that was pretty amazing. Like in hindsight, it was basically the Switch of its day, especially once they added the Super Game Boy cartridge where you could actually play on the TV too. But yeah, it was just a really cool system. You had full parity with the same amount of buttons as the NES, basically the same graphical and audio capabilities. The only thing you're missing, of course, was the color screen, which they would eventually rectify.
Like 10 years later.
To a degree with a Super Game Boy and then, Game Boy Color. But yeah, and I've had a refound love for that platform thanks to this bad boy, the Analog Pocket.
Nice.
Love this thing. This
I-
screen is amazing. One of the best screens ever made, and I'm using it to play 8-bit Game Boy games, which is amazing. And it's made me appreciate that library all the more because that's a style of gameplay that we're never going to get again to that degree, you know?
Yeah.
And it's fun to revisit that era of games. Simpler by and large, you know, but yet, you know, still they were exploring what you could do with the platform. And I love it. I enjoy going back to that just level of simplicity where I don't have to study a manual for how to play a game. You know, you hop in, you got 4 buttons, and you're off.
Right.
And it's been great revisiting it. So
I was remembering this year I played Super Mario Land for the first time. I played it twice almost, but then I was trying to beat it twice to get the cheat code I forgot what the thing was, but I had to beat it twice to unlock something. I forgot what exactly, and I was so close to beating it a second time, but the game crashed on Switch.
It crashed.
It crashed. It said an unexpected error occurred and just completely wiped all my data.
Wow.
That has never happened to me playing a Switch Online game.
Yeah, it wouldn't happen on the Game Boy, Joey.
It would not. It really wouldn't. The batteries would die though. Didn't it take 4 AA's or was it just 2?
4 AA's, but they lasted I think like over 20 hours.
That's pretty good.
That's longer than the PS4 controller. Substantially.
Yes. You know, I still use AA's on my Xbox controller. I just have a whole bunch of them, and I know people tell me just get a rechargeable battery pack, and I'm like, I'm too lazy to do that. So, but those AA's still last a while. They last longer than a charge.
You know what I'll look into then, Joey, is one of those battery chargers. Like I use that for my AA's. It's amazing. So.
Oh yeah, I had one, but I've lost mine, so I need to go back and do that. But I can't find my Game Boy anywhere, at least currently. But I did find this thing. Right?
Oh my god, the Game Boy printer. I got one too floating around somewhere. I actually just bought printer paper for it from a used game store about a year ago.
That's so rad. Yeah, I had the Game Boy camera somewhere. I've like for some there it is. And for mine's a different color than that though. This was before smartphones.
You had the inferior one. I had the best one.
Yeah, the best one because it's blue. Yeah, that's really cool. It was, I did a lot on that. I don't even remember what I did on that Game Boy camera, color camera, but I did, and I enjoyed it a lot. It was really cool. I don't even know if I used the printer. Like, I still got quite a lot of printer paper in here. So,
oh, nice. I might have to
from all the way back then.
It was just so cool.
The printer, I barely used
all the way.
But it was a cool novelty, like the fact that you could actually make a hard copy of something you took digitally. Like, this was one of the first widely available digital cameras, especially at this size. And the fact that you could print those out onto this cool printer paper without needing ink, and that paper was actually a sticker, so you could just slap that stuff wherever you wanted.
Nice.
And it's super cool. It was a really neat era. Like Nintendo did a lot of experimenting, I feel like, back then, and that's it.
It did. A lot of experimenting had to happen during that time, and this was it really was ahead of its time in a lot of ways, especially because you could take selfies on it. Granted, the pictures didn't look very clear, but still, it was super rad. Even got a light accessory with it. I had that light too.
I remember using the worm lights. Man, what a trip!
Oh man,
yeah.
Wormlight ain't got nothing on what I'm about to show you. Hold on here.
Oh,
this is what I had, baby. The Handy Boy.
Oh my god.
It was amazing. It was basically a transformer. So the way it worked is it tapped into the batteries you already had to power the dual speakers, true stereo audio, which you cannot get, by the way, out of the Game Boy by default unless you used headphones. You got the magnifying glass. It had lights inside of it, so you could actually play in the dark, which was nice. It added a joystick and buttons. Years before joysticks were even popularized outside of arcades, and it was kind of amazing. I mean, in hindsight, it was a piece of crap. At the time, though, it actually made the Game Boy kind of playable. When you're not either on an airplane with an overhead light or underneath the sun, which is both one of the two things you needed to play this thing.
That's so hilarious. Never forget the company's name. Was it Joy Plus?
I don't remember. Joy Plus is what it says there. Yep.
Wow.
Yeah, it's bringing plus joy to the Game Boy. Did that screen even help? That magnifying glass?
Shockingly, I remember it actually helping. Maybe anyone else in chat can chime in. It actually did help, though, surprisingly. But it's easy to forget how kind of in hindsight, that how tiny that Game Boy screen was. And another reason why I like the Analog Pocket is by comparison, this screen is huge compared to the original. So it actually did make it easier to see.
That's so cool. Yeah, the Game Boy. I also think this is kind of scummy a little bit. The fact that Nintendo considers Game Boy and Game Boy Color like the same console, and they count them as like with just like, oh, the Game Boy Color and the Game Boy, they sold this amount, which means the Game Boy in general sold this amount, and I'm like, I don't trust you to Nintendo. Either way, the Switch surpassed it all. So
I mean, to be fair, the original Game Boy had the better library of the two when it comes to exclusive games, which could be played on the Game Boy Color.
Yeah, it still annoys me that we never actually got a true like 2D Mario either on the Game Boy Color or Game Boy Advance. You know, that wasn't a port or yeah.
I mean, yeah. I mean, at least with the Super Mario Advance series, they made notable improvements to a bunch of those games that I heavily prefer over their original versions of the games.
Yeah, that is wild. I never thought about that. We wouldn't get a new original 2D Mario until the illustrious new Super Mario Brothers.
It's true, yeah. I will say, like, going back to Super Mario Land is such a trip. Considering the second one was more in line with what a Mario game is supposed to be.
I love
where one is just a gigantic experiment with them trying so many different things and seeing what sticks.
Yeah,
and I love it for it.
I hate the gravity.
Fun.
The gravity can suck it.
But only when you fall. That's a weird thing. It's only when you fall.
Yeah.
If you jump, it's fine. It's when you fall that gravity really kicks into gear. But I like Mario Land also because it's like one of the only kind of proper sequels we got to the original Super Mario Brothers, at least in the West. Of course, there's also Mario 2 in Japan, which is lost levels here. But it's one of those only games that uses that same like first off, like block your style of graphics, but also the screen scrolling where you can't go left, you know? And so I kind of enjoy it on that level. Like it feels like a weird adaptation to Super Mario Brothers for a handheld that tries some of its own new things too. Including having like this really, truly bespoke worlds, which is something they haven't really done outside of the Mario Land games until more recently, I think. Whereas before it was like generic grasslands, generic desert. Here you're in China or Egypt, and then Mario Land 2 built on that idea where you're inside a house for an entire world, you're in a Halloween section. I'm like, yeah, that's cool. Give me more of that. That's actually a neat idea.
Yeah. For me, the Game Boy ultimately really comes down to, for two things where I still basically thank them for gauging interest in those genres, which was puzzle games, with like Mole Mania, Cat Trap, Puzzle League, and that sort of stuff.
Krusty's Funhouse.
That.
And then on the other hand, for me at least, it were RPGs with Pokemon and Final Fantasy Legends and that sort of stuff.
Okay, so I'm gonna ask you. I'm gonna ask the panel a question, and you'll have to answer really fast and give a brief explanation why. What is your favorite Game Boy / Game Boy Color game? Tris, you go first.
It has to be Super Mario Land 2: Six Golden Coins because it was my very first game.
Oh, that's so cool!
And
that's
I love that. I love that game so much. Especially now that it's on NSO, I randomly go back to it here and there. I'll like clear it in a few hours. It's just really fun, honestly, and it's still like one of the most unique 2D Mario games. So it feels kind of neat to me that was my very first game.
Yeah, I might have to jump into that especially after beating Mario Land 1. Andre, yours.
Oh man, it's tough. Right now, I would probably go Donkey Kong Land. I love that game. I love that they took Donkey Kong Country, adapted it to the Game Boy. The fact that they had graphics that looked reminiscent of the 16-bit system on the black and white 8-bit handheld system that's powered by 4 AA's like blew my mind. And it's just a lot of fun. So in fact, I like the whole Donkey Kong Land trilogy on Game Boy, but the first one stands out the most to me.
That's so cool.
Fair.
Don.
For me, Game Boy and Game Color completely two different answers, man.
All right, give me one of each then.
Game Boy was Donkey Kong 94. I think I played that game most out of any Game Boy game I've ever played, considering how novel it was in terms of, particularly if you look back now at Mario vs. Donkey Kong, how more sterile that is in comparison to that game.
It kind of is,
and how inventive the puzzles in more ways than one. I love that game to freaking death. When it comes to Game Boy Color, I actually have it in my hand. It's Pokemon Puzzle Challenge.
Nice.
Ooh, very nice.
Because it follows the story of Gold and Silver, but also adds the proper modes that we now know Puzzle League to be, which they tried to emulate a little bit in the N64 game, but this game was like the real deal. And I've even over the versions on 3DS, on this version, on the version on that many came out over the years, I think I've spent the most out of any puzzle game, particularly on this one.
Oh wow.
Wow.
Very nice. Now, as for me, it's a toss-up because I don't remember which one of these I liked more. Wario Land 2 and 3.
Ooh,
Those
were so
games,
good.
man, so good. And it's a crime. Those are the only 2 Wario Land games I've played. I really need to go back and play the other ones. I even bought Wario Land Shake It like a year ago, and I still haven't bought it yet. I mean, played it yet. I still haven't played it yet. So, yeah, I want to revisit the Wario Land games because they were just pure childhood magic to me. Like, just like, man, and the fact that you could never die. I was just like, Wario's the most powerful being in the universe. Like, let's be real.
I need
Power
to
of money.
I need to replay, or I need to play those games. I've only played the first one more recently. I never played 2 or 3, but I have them, so I've been meaning to visit those. They're pretty good things. So
Yeah, they're really good. I think in Wario Land 2, there's a boss where if there's a snake boss, and if Wario gets eaten by it, he gets pooped out. I think.
Yes, correct.
It was so hilarious.
But
Like,
the Wario Land games are really good. Yeah.
2 quick things, since we kind of touched on Game Boy Color, though I wasn't including that, but I do want to give a shout out to Pikmin 442 and Brian as for calling out Mario Brothers Deluxe for the Game Boy Color as
nice.
Being their favorite games, which was a really well done port for its time, because it was, I mean, it wasn't just a port. They added a lot of extra features. They included the lost levels. They added like a world map to Mario. Really well done game that was a lot of fun for its time. But we are including Game Boy Color library too. I would go with Pokemon, the trading card game. I love that on the Game Boy Color, not the trading card game itself, the trading card video game version of it. It was amazing. It's on Switch Online right now. So fun. They captured the mechanics of the trading card game perfectly within it, and I love that they built a Pokemon RPG around it. So fantastic.
Yeah, I currently have. I went back to that game. I have a lot of problems with the RNG in that game.
Get good, Don.
Get good.
No, the RNG is not good in that game.
Yeah. All right, Tris, favorite Game Boy Color game?
Let's see.
I think I know what it is.
If I don't go over Mario Land 2 Golden Coins, then it's gonna have to be the Zelda Oracle games.
Right. Of course.
I love those games so much. They were like my first Zelda games. Like literally
Same.
my first 4 video games I ever had were Super Mario Land 2 Golden Coins, the Oracle games, and Pokemon Yellow. So
that's really cool. Yeah, the Zelda Oracle of Seasons was my first Zelda game of all time. I never beat it as a kid though, but I beat it when we did Game Club. Remember Game Club? R.I.P. in peace. But like, and Sync get to the show. Dang
I
it.
have that game for some reason. I don't know why. I've never played it, but I have it somehow.
It's more. NSYNC is more relevant now than ever too,
Deadpool.
because of Deadpool and Wolverine. They even changed the title of "Bye Bye Bye" on YouTube to say
so
from the Deadpool Wolverine
awesome.
soundtrack.
I will say, because I was a bit late with Pokemon Yellow, like it was the contribution to my first ever game pre-order, which was Pokemon Gold and Silver.
Oh wow.
I think you made Andre mad. He's leaving.
But I actually still have somewhere on these shelves. There was a preview disc that you got for the movie, and for some other products related to it. And you actually got that disc when you pre-ordered Gold and Silver in stores.
That's pretty cool. That is pretty cool. And I got to bring up Metroid 2 for a bit because I'm a diehard Metroid fan. I actually don't like that game very much. The remake is miles better in every way. And some people argue AM2R is better too, which I haven't played, but by all means, they're right.
If you like sluggish gameplay on the Game Boy, then go for it, I guess.
Oh my god, it's so sluggish, and you don't know where you're going. What is that?
NSYNC. Proof.
Oh, let's
Oh my
go,
God.
baby.
Yeah, I have it.
The closest thing I've gotten to a game like that, I had a Spice Girls PlayStation 1 game. I'm not the one who had it. My sister had it. I don't know what that game was about. I remember them playing like really low bite clips from the Spice World movie.
Amazing.
Yeah. God, let me some Spice Girls.
But yeah, the first game I ever played on Game Boy, funny enough, was Quicks.
Oh.
I'd never even heard of that one.
Oh, the stick game, right?
Yeah, it's a stick game where you try to fill in fields across the game. It's an arcade game originally, which they managed to pump into a Game Boy cartridge.
It's impressive.
That's
When I
always
worked at IGN, they had the arcade version of that there. I used to play it.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and actually runs really well on Game Boy. So
That's awesome.
Yeah, there was times where so our good pal over at Retro Comparisons did a 9.5 hour long comparison video of games that came out between Sega platforms and Nintendo platforms. There's a lot of interesting cross-gen games that came out on like Game Boy that were also on like Sega Saturn. Like the first or second Grand Theft Auto, one of the old ones, like has a Game Boy or a Game Boy Color port to it, and it's just like wow, the stuff they were able to get away with.
Yeah, the overhead GTA has had a version on Game Boy Color. I'm not sure if it's that good, but it exists.
Right? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, well, shout out to the Game Boy for being 35 years old and still having like this resurgence of popularity. It seems like the Analog Pocket, which is primarily Game Boy focused, blew up. Like it still sells out as far as I'm aware, except for the aluminum model, which no one wants to pay double for.
Nobody wants that.
And of course, it being on NSO has brought, I'm sure, more people into experience these games for the first time. And especially, love that you can play those games online now. Like Game Boy, even though it felt like almost everyone owned a Game Boy, I feel like no one really ever played multiplayer with it. Even though, partly because you needed a cable for it. Now you can do it online with anyone who has NSO, and that's great. So it's fun that
the only reason I would have do that was for Pokemon trading.
That's for sure. Yeah, I never did multiplayer either. I didn't have that cable, and I didn't really like bring my Game Boy to school or anything. But yeah, shout out to the Game Boy. 35 years old. It's been old enough to do everything at this point. Yes. So before we conclude this pipeline discussion, I just want to give a shout out to a game that I have been playing recently that I love so much that sadly I don't think anyone else has played really, because it is, even though it's on Game Pass, every achievement I get is a rare achievement, and I'm just like, no. It's called Dungeons of Hinterberg.
I played it.
You played it, Don?
Don's played every game, so
I actually talked about Hinterberg before a couple of months ago. So,
oh, you have on our show or on?
Yes, as a game that I was looking forward to.
Oh, cool! Yeah, I found out about it until recently. A friend of mine on Twitter, Anthony Garcelino, posted about it, and I'm like, that looks really cool. I'll check it out on Game Pass.
That game
so good. Play it.
I played it at like 3 conventions. Like I was completely already on board, and then I played it on day one. It's like, oh my god, so good.
Yeah, and it's set in a fictional German town called Hinterberg. It's just a really fascinating game. It's a what kind of genre? It's action adventure with some RPG elements in there. Very story based too.
That's a good description. Even that doesn't completely encompasses what that game is really about, but it's something you need to experience.
Yes, exactly. I would call it the coziest action adventure game I've ever played. It's the definition of cozy.
I like that description.
Yeah, because between like going through dungeons and exploring the open zones this game has, you go back to town and you meet people, you have relationships with them, and like getting to know these people actually increases your stats, because like hanging out with them increases like it gives you extra HP, gives you extra like other abilities as well, and like it's all accompanied by a beautiful art style, beautiful music. It's just cozy. It's so cozy, and I highly recommend you all give it a shot. It's only, from what I know, it's only on Xbox and PC, and it's on Xbox Game Pass as well. So if you still have Game Pass, that's how I'm playing it. Even still, I might have to buy myself a copy of this game too, just to support the developers, because it's just really good. This game is fantastic.
Right.
Yeah, Eric, Game Boy's Lone Team president now. Thank you, Brian. Thank you. I knew there was a milestone there somewhere.
Vote for Game Boy. It gets my vote.
It gets my vote, exactly. Yeah. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us on this week's episode of The Pipeline. It was a pretty depressing one, but at least we ended on a high note talking about Game Boy turning 35 and a game that Don and I just absolutely love. Play Dungeons of Hinterberg. It's
hey,
really
another game
good.
you played. Check out the SteamWorld Heist 2.
And SteamWorld Heist 2. Exactly. Yeah, I came out my review of SteamWorld Heist 2. If you look up my review, you already know what score I gave it, because you can't escape it. Yeah, so be sure to check out SteamWorld Heist 2 as well. Even if you haven't played the first game, I do recommend playing the first game at least, but Heist 2 you can go in completely blind. That game is not out yet. It's coming out on August 8th, so check it out.
I mean, the older SteamWorld games usually go on sale for pretty heavy discounts, so if you want
extremely heavy discounts.
Yeah, so get those.
Get him, girl, get him. All right, but thank you all so much for watching, and we will see you all next week. Bye bye. Everybody wave.
Bye.